I watched my mother-in-law dump the entire contents of our kitchen trash onto her apartment floor, blood dripping from her hand where she'd sliced it on broken glass. She didn't even notice. She was too busy examining an old receipt, muttering about government surveillance. This wasn't supposed to be my life at 72. Last year, Daniel and I sold our home of 30 years to help his mother, Vivian. She was 86 then, living alone in that cramped apartment, clearly struggling. We thought we were doing the right thing. We pooled our money with hers, bought this big house with separate living quarters for her. She insisted on being put on the deed as a 1/3 owner. Equal partners, she'd said. A family investment. Now I understand what a catastrophic mistake that was.
"Vivian, your hand is bleeding," I said, stepping into her space, trying to keep my voice steady. She looked up at me with those sharp eyes that seemed to see right through me sometimes, while other times they looked completely vacant. "They're tracking our purchases, don't you see? This receipt proves it." She held up a crumpled paper from 3 weeks ago. I grabbed a clean towel and reached for her hand. She jerked away. "Don't touch me. You're in on it too, aren't you?" My heart hammered in my chest. This was getting worse, much worse than even last month. "Vivian, please, you're hurt." I managed to wrap the towel around her hand anyway. She let me this time, her attention already drifting to something else. That's when I saw it. Stacked neatly on her coffee table were multiple business cards. Attorneys. At least 6 different law firms. My stomach dropped. "What are these?" She smiled. Actually smiled. It was the most lucid I'd seen her look in days. "Insurance." "Insurance for what?" "For when I take back what's mine." I backed out of her apartment on shaking legs. Daniel was in the garage, organizing tools. When I told him about the attorney cards, his face went white. "She's been making calls," he said quietly. "I checked the phone bill yesterday. 8 different law offices in the past 2 months. I didn't want to worry you until I knew more." "What do you mean, knew more?" He pulled out his phone and showed me our security camera footage from 2 days ago. Vivian was in our driveway, talking to her friend Margaret from her old neighborhood. Margaret visited constantly now, always whispering with Vivian, always leaving with bags of our things. I turned up the volume on the video. Vivian's voice came through clearly. "When they get the news, there's going to be a big fight, but when I'm through with them, they won't have anything left." The screen blurred as my hands started trembling. Daniel steadied the phone. "What news?" I whispered. "I don't know, but we need to figure it out fast." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything from the past year. The plastic bags melted against the electric heaters in her room. The fire she'd started inside her apartment before we moved, burning papers in a tin can. The mouse she'd caught in the garage and killed with her bare hands, crushing. The racist comments she'd made loudly at the grocery store. That had mortified me so badly, I'd stopped taking her out. The items that kept disappearing from our garage, later found hidden in her apartment inside rubber gloves and empty containers. But worse than all of that were the things she'd started saying. About wanting to be with dead people. About the satellite tracking her movements. About how she'd watched the same star, probably Venus, move across the sky to follow her specifically. Daniel's daughter Sarah had visited last month and pulled me aside. She called me by my dead aunt's name 3 times. She doesn't know what year it is. This isn't normal aging. But what could we do? Vivian refused to see a doctor for evaluation. We had no power of attorney, no guardianship. She was still legally competent in the eyes of the law, even though she clearly wasn't. The next morning, Vivian acted like nothing had happened. She made herself breakfast in her kitchenette, humming that same tune she'd hummed while killing the mouse. I watched her through the window that connected our spaces. She looked so normal, so ordinary, an elderly woman making toast. Then she turned and looked directly at me, smiled, and mouthed words I couldn't quite make out. My phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello? Is this Mrs. Patricia Reynolds?" A professional male voice. "Yes. This is James Hartford from Hartford & Associates. I'm calling regarding the property dispute filed by Vivian Reynolds.
We represent the other party, and we're required to notify you that you'll be receiving formal documentation within the week. The room spun. What property dispute? The partition action. Mrs. Vivian Reynolds is seeking to force the sale of the property located at... She's suing us? The words came out as a strangled whisper. To sell our home? The home she co-owns, yes, ma'am. She's entitled as a 1/3 owner to petition the court for partition. We'll be in touch. He hung up. I stood there, phone pressed to my ear, listening to dead air. Through the window, Vivian waved at me. That same smile. Daniel found me 20 minutes later, still standing in the same spot. She's forcing a sale, I said. She found a lawyer who'll take the case. She's going to make us sell this house. No, Daniel's face hardened. No, she's not. She has dementia. Any court will see that. Will they? She seems fine half the time, lucid enough to hire an attorney, lucid enough to plan this. Then we get our own lawyer. We tried. God, we tried. I called 14 law firms over the next 3 days. 14. Every single one either didn't handle this type of case, was too expensive, or told us they couldn't help because Vivian had already consulted with them. It's called conflicting out, one lawyer explained. She'd contacted so many attorneys in the area that none of them could ethically represent us now. She'd planned this. Somehow, through all the confusion and cognitive decline, she'd planned this perfectly. The formal papers arrived on a Tuesday. Partition action. Force sale of property. My hands shook as I read through the legal jargon. It was real. She was actually doing it. This. Daniel and I sat at our kitchen table, the papers spread between us like evidence of a crime. We have to call Adult Protective Services, I said. This proves she's not mentally competent. She's trying to destroy her own life. We called. APS sent someone out the next day. A tired-looking woman named Jennifer, who interviewed Vivian separately, then us. She seems oriented to time and place, Jennifer said, closing her notebook. She knew the date, the president, her address. She claims you're trying to control her money and her life. Without evidence of immediate physical danger, there's not much we can do. She melts plastic bags on heaters, Daniel's voice cracked. She digs through trash and cuts herself. She killed an animal with her bare hands. Those are concerning behaviors, but they're not enough for involuntary intervention. She's allowed to make poor decisions. She's allowed to be difficult. Unless she's an imminent threat to herself or others, she's threatening to destroy our lives. Jennifer gave us a sad, practiced smile. That's a civil legal matter. I can refer you to counseling services for caregivers dealing with difficult family members. She left us with a pamphlet. That night, I heard Vivian on the phone again. Her voice drifted through the walls. Yes, that's right. They're trying to trap me here, taking my money, controlling everything. I just want what's mine. I pressed my ear to the wall. Margaret, you're the only one who understands. When this is over, I'll sell my share and move somewhere nice, somewhere they can't find me. My blood ran cold. She wasn't confused at all. She knew exactly what she was doing. This was about money, about getting her third of the house value and disappearing. The problem was, if she forced a sale, we'd lose everything too. The housing market had shifted. We'd be underwater on the mortgage. We'd end up with almost nothing after paying off the loan and giving Vivian her share. We'd be homeless at 72 and 68. I walked into Daniel's study where he was hunched over his computer, researching elder law. We need to document everything, I said. Every bizarre behavior, every dangerous thing, every sign of dementia. We have been. No, I mean everything. Video, audio, witnesses. Need to build a case that she's incompetent. It's the only way to stop this. For the next 2 weeks, we became detectives in our own home. I started carrying my phone constantly, ready to... We documented Vivian placing an extension cord directly on top of a baseboard heater, the plastic
coating, melting, and browning. We filmed her going through our garage trash at 2 in the morning, pulling out sharp pieces of broken tile. We recorded her talking to the sky, shouting at Venus that she knew it was watching her, that she wasn't fooled. We collected 19 incidents, 19 clear examples of cognitive decline and dangerous behavior. We finally found a lawyer willing to take our case, Helen Martinez, a family law attorney 3 towns over. She cost more than we could afford, but we had no choice. She reviewed our documentation and shook her head. This is compelling evidence of dementia, but here's the problem. Unless you have guardianship or she's been officially declared incompetent, she has every legal right to pursue this partition action. So what do we do? My voice was breaking. You file for emergency guardianship, but that takes time, probably 2 to 3 months. And her lawsuit is already moving forward. Can't we show the judge this evidence? Prove she's not capable of making this decision? You can try, but judges are reluctant to remove someone's legal rights without a formal competency evaluation. And she's already established a pattern of engaging attorneys and appearing lucid enough to pursue legal action. That works against your argument. We were trapped. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for 5 weeks out. Helen filed a motion to delay, arguing that Vivian's mental competence needed to be evaluated first. Vivian's attorney, a slick man named Davidson, who I immediately despised, argued that she was perfectly competent and we were using baseless accusations to avoid honoring her property rights. The judge ordered a court-appointed psychiatric evaluation. Finally, something going our way. The psychiatrist came to the house on a Thursday morning. Dr. Patel, a kind-faced man in his 50s. He spent 2 hours with Vivian. She was perfect for him. Charming, oriented, pleasant. She knew the date, the president, her address, our names. She answered every question correctly. She appeared completely normal. When he asked about the lawsuit, she had her story ready. My son and his wife have become very controlling. They monitor my phone calls, go through my things, tell me what I can and can't do. I'm simply asserting my legal right to my own property. I want to sell my share and live independently again. It was so reasonable, so rational. Dr. Patel asked to speak with us afterward. My hope flickered. She presents as someone with mild age-related cognitive changes, but nothing that would render her legally incompetent. She's oriented, her reasoning is intact, and she can clearly articulate her wishes and the consequences of her actions. But that's not who she is every day. I pulled out my phone, showed him the videos. The melted bags, the trash digging, the conversations with the sky. He watched, frowning. These are concerning. They do suggest some cognitive impairment, but they're not inconsistent with her maintaining legal capacity. Dementia isn't all or nothing. Many people with early to moderate dementia retain the ability to make legal decisions. Even decisions that will destroy their family? Unfortunately, yes. Competency is a very specific legal standard. She meets it. He left. Our last hope walked out the door with him. That night, Vivian hosted Margaret in her apartment. I could hear them celebrating. Actual laughter. I sat in the dark in our living room, Daniel beside me, both of us silent. We're going to lose the house, he said finally. I know. I don't understand how this is legal, how she can do this. Because we put her on the deed, because we trusted her. Daniel's face crumpled. She's my mother. I held his hand. We sat there for a long time. The next morning, something shifted in me. I was done being passive, done being the victim. If Vivian wanted to play legal games, fine. I could play too. I started making calls. First, to every friend and family member who'd witnessed Vivian's behavior. Daniel's cousin, who'd seen her accuse a store clerk of being a government agent. Our neighbor, who'd watched her kill that mouse. Sarah, who could testify about the name confusion and time disorientation. Then I called the police department. Vivian had called them on us 2 weeks ago over something absurd, claiming we'd stolen her mail when she'd simply misplaced it. The responding officers had been sympathetic, even telling us to call APS.
I asked for copies of their report. They documented her confused state and paranoid ideation. I gathered every scrap of evidence, phone bills showing her obsessive calls to Margaret and multiple attorneys, medical records we could access showing missed appointments and her doctor's notes about patient displaying confusion, receipts for the fire pit we'd had to buy after she burned papers inside her apartment. I built a file 3 inches thick. Helen reviewed it and nodded slowly. This is good. Really good. We can present this at the hearing, argue for a delay pending a more thorough competency evaluation. Will it work? I don't know, but it's our best shot. The preliminary hearing arrived. We sat on one side of the courtroom, Vivian and her attorney on the other. She looked so small and frail, so much like a victim. My stomach churned. Judge Williams, a stern woman in her 60s, reviewed the motions. Davidson spoke first, painting us as controlling, greedy children trying to trap a vulnerable elderly woman and steal her property. He made Vivian sound like a prisoner in our home. Then Helen presented our evidence. She walked the judge through every incident, every documented example of cognitive decline. She showed the videos, read the police report, presented testimony from witnesses. I watched Vivian's face. She looked confused at first, then angry, then something else, something that looked almost like fear. Your Honor, Helen concluded, this woman is not capable of making complex legal decisions. She's exhibiting clear signs of moderate dementia. Forcing a partition sale would not only harm her son and daughter-in-law, but would ultimately harm Mrs. Vivian Reynolds herself. She has no plan, no support system, no ability to manage living independently. This lawsuit is a symptom of her cognitive decline, not a legitimate legal action. Judge Williams turned to Vivian. Mrs. Reynolds, I've reviewed all this evidence. Do you understand what's being alleged? Vivian stood, shaking. They're lying. They're trying to control me. She stopped, looked around the courtroom, suddenly confused. Where am I? The courtroom went silent. Mrs. Reynolds? The judge prompted. Vivian blinked, looked at Davidson. Who are you? My heart stopped. Was this real, or was this an act? Davidson leaned over, whispered to her. She nodded, seemed to come back to herself. I'm sorry. I'm just overwhelmed. These proceedings are very stressful. But the judge had seen it, that moment of complete disorientation. I'm ordering a comprehensive neurological evaluation by an independent specialist before this case proceeds further. The partition action is stayed pending that evaluation. This hearing is adjourned. We'd bought time, maybe a month, maybe 2. In the parking lot, Vivian walked past us to Margaret's car. She paused, turned back. You think you've won, she said clearly, all confusion gone from her voice. You haven't. I'll drag this out as long as I need to. I'll make sure you lose everything. Then she smiled and got in the car. Daniel looked at me. Was she faking in there? I don't know anymore. I honestly don't know. The neurological evaluation was scheduled for 3 weeks out. In the meantime, Vivian's behavior escalated. She started leaving her apartment at night, wandering the house. We'd wake up to find her in our bedroom doorway, just standing there, watching us sleep. She stopped bathing, stopped changing clothes. Her apartment began to smell. And the phone calls with Margaret increased to 3-4 times a day. Each time, Vivian would emerge afterward agitated, hostile. I started to suspect Margaret was coaching her, feeding her paranoia, keeping her focused on the lawsuit. One afternoon, I worked up the courage to confront Margaret when she arrived for a visit. What do you want from her? I asked, blocking the door to Vivian's apartment. Margaret's face was pure innocence. I'm just supporting my friend. You're half her age. You've only known her 2 years. What's really going on? She tells me you're stealing from her, trapping her here. I'm helping her get free. She has dementia. She needs help, not encouragement to destroy her family. Margaret leaned in close. She promised me $10,000 when the house sells for helping her. That's what's going on. She pushed past me into Vivian's apartment. I stood there, stunned. $10,000? Vivian was paying Margaret to sabotage us. I told Helen immediately. She added it to our file. Financial exploitation of a vulnerable elder, she said. This actually helps our case, shows that Vivian is being manipulated by someone with a financial interest in the outcome. The neurological evaluation happened on a Tuesday. Different doctor this time. Dr. Chen, a neuropsychologist who specialized in dementia. The evaluation lasted 4 hours. We weren't allowed in the room. When it was over, Dr. Chen spoke with us briefly. I can't discuss my findings until my report is complete, but I will say that I've administered comprehensive cognitive testing. The results will be in my official report to the court. His face was neutral, but something in his tone gave me hope. The report came back 8 days later. Helen called us immediately. "Sit down," she said when we arrived at her office. We sat. Dr. Chen's findings are conclusive. Vivian has moderate to severe Alzheimer's disease, with significant impairment in executive function, judgment, and decision-making capacity. He is recommending immediate guardianship and stating clearly that she lacks the mental capacity to pursue this partition action. I burst into tears. Daniel grabbed my hand. What happens now? We go back to court, we present this report, we get the lawsuit dismissed, and we file for emergency guardianship so this can never happen again. The hearing was scheduled for the following week, the longest week of my life. Vivian seemed to sense something had changed. She barely came out of her apartment. When she did, she wouldn't look at us, just shuffled past, muttering. Margaret stopped visiting. The day of the hearing, Vivian didn't want to come. She locked herself in her apartment. We had to coax her out, promising her it would be quick, that everything would be fine. In the courtroom, she looked so small, so lost. Judge Williams reviewed Dr. Chen's report, all 12 pages. Then she looked at Davidson. "Counselor, in light of these findings, do you wish to continue representing Mrs. Reynolds in this matter?" Davidson stood, clearly uncomfortable. "Your Honor, based on Dr. Chen's evaluation, I believe my client lacks the capacity to meaningfully participate in this legal action. I'm withdrawing from the case." Just like that, he abandoned her. Vivian looked confused. "What's happening?" The judge turned to us. "Mr. and Mrs. Reynolds, it's clear that your mother needs immediate intervention. I'm dismissing the partition action with prejudice. It cannot be refiled. Additionally, I'm granting you temporary emergency guardianship pending a full hearing. Mrs. Vivian Reynolds is hereby declared legally incapacitated." It was over. We sat there, unable to move. 9 months of hell ended with a gavel strike. Vivian stood up suddenly. No, this isn't right. I want my house. I want my money. You can't do this to me." Daniel went to her, tried to calm her. She pushed him away. "You did this. You poisoned them against me. I hate you." The bailiff stepped forward. The judge called for a recess. In the hallway, Vivian collapsed in a chair, sobbing. Not the manipulative tears I'd seen before. Real, broken sobs. "I just wanted to be free," she whispered. "I wanted my own life." My anger dissolved. This wasn't the woman who'd tried to destroy us. This was a sick, frightened, confused old woman who'd been manipulated and who'd lashed out in fear. I sat down beside her, took her hand. "You are free, Vivian. You're safe. We're going to take care of you." She looked at me with those cloudy eyes. "Patricia?" "Yes, it's me. I'm scared. I know, but it's going to be okay now." It wasn't perfect after that. Vivian's condition continued to decline. We moved her to a memory care facility 2 months later when it became clear we couldn't manage her needs at home. She fought it at first, but eventually settled in. We visit her 3 times a week. Most days, she doesn't know who we are. Some days she does, and she asks about the house, about the lawsuit. We tell her everything worked out fine. She smiles and says, "Good. I always wanted you to be happy." I don't know if she remembers what she tried to do to us. I don't think she does. We kept the house. The guardianship allowed us to remove her from the deed properly, compensating her estate fairly. The money went into a trust for her care. Margaret disappeared completely.
We reported her to APS for financial exploitation, but without Vivian's testimony, nothing came of it. Sometimes I think about how close we came to losing everything. How one decision, putting Vivian on that deed, nearly destroyed our lives. But mostly, I think about how broken the system is, how many hoops we had to jump through to protect someone from themselves, how expensive and exhausting and terrifying it all was. We were lucky. We had resources, determination, and eventually a judge who saw the truth. Not everyone does. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever had to fight for guardianship of a parent who didn't think they needed help?